TPAs.
Right.
And I think it was linked to that. I mean, a real appreciation for the process so far and the opportunity to input into it, but a certain sort of, skepticism about, well, let's wait and see if it really makes a difference. But I think connected to that, and I think this is a little more related to the specific TPA selection, I think there was a concern it's sort of the flip side of this notion of we want TPAs to be successful, especially in this first round, to demonstrate that this makes a difference. And so using that sort of filter of feasibility is an important factor.
Right.
On the other hand, are more difficult neighborhoods.
Right.
Right? There's a sense of, well, there we go again, we're being left behind.
Right.
And I don't know how to balance that, but I want you to know that that's kind of there as a potential
right.
tension to be thinking about.
I think my issues are not, now I've gone from being special to this is kind of boring, but I think one of the things that has bubbled up in the natural resources group is definitely as these TPAs are identified, how do we actually help them if they are so far along in their environmental process at the point where they come up and make the grade.
Right.
And so how do we really have utility from a natural resource perspective in assisting with their environmental review? Along those lines, is there some consternation about what type of precedents will we set by being so detailed on these particular TPAs, the chosen TPAs, that we then begin to set a precedence for every other project that comes about throughout the scope of the EIR for the entire MTP. Mm-hmm. Nothing really specific, but just a general concern of are we opening Pandora's box? And I would also say that the displacement issue did come up in Natural Resources Working Group as well, that we do not want to be working in a silo and come up with indicators or policies which just displaces an existing problem rather than help resolve it.
So do I have time to ask one more question? Okay, but I also want to, if anyone else has got one, so let me try to ask this quickly. I'm going to come back to the question from the back about the price of gas and the issue about how do we, what might get people's attention here. At SACOG, we try to make our best estimate of what's going to happen in the future in terms of population growth, price of gas, incomes of people, et cetera. But we're also, well, that we have to do that, and we hope we do a pretty good job. We're not, we're humble enough to know that we're not likely to get all of that precisely right. If we get it roughly right, we're probably more lucky than good. But as planners, you also have to think about, okay, so what if you are wrong? And what if certain things happen differently than you expect? So my question is, for the issues we've been talking about, what if the price of gas this summer goes up to something close to $5 or $4.75. We're almost at $4.50 for some grades of gasoline right now. But what if Labor Day comes and goes and it doesn't go back down again? For whatever reason, it continues to inch up. And so what if we have $5 gas and rising as a permanent condition starting right now? Do you think that, if that were to happen, would in any material way change the conversation that's going on in the groups that you're for good or bad? There's not a right answer to this. It's just a what if. What if that turns out to be part of the reality of what we're dealing with here?
Are we going in sequence again, or?
I'll start this time.
No, okay, we'll go the opposite direction. Good.
I think that the what if, and this is just my opinion overall, and I should say one of the great things is not only do we get up here and talk amongst ourselves, we meet separately and talk amongst ourselves. So this is a sort of from a spectator seat of watching this entire process. I think the what if may be that I think in times when economics are tough, at the individual level, you go back into a place of looking at simplicity. And I think one of the challenges we may have is making sure that we continue to effectively articulate why this project is important. And it will come back to economics and how it can help individual people. I think if we get up to 30,000 feet and keep in any way talking at a utopian level is the way I'm going to put it. You talk about tokenism, I talk about a utopian society.
You talking about my slideshow? No more VMT talk?
I think it's very difficult for people to understand where they personally win or lose. And when you're talking about a price of a gallon of gas, people are then making decisions about, I'm either doing this for my kids, I'm either paying the utility bill, or I'm putting gas in my car to go to work. So I'm hopeful that we continue to drive down into how it's going to affect people and economics at a very personal level. And I think that's true whether we see gas prices go up or not.
Anybody, you don't have to comment on this if you
Well,
want.
no, actually, I just want to make clear that we did not discuss in our working group the price of gas and the likelihood of peak oil as much as it
You ought
may
to
be
be
on
clear
people's
about
mind. So what I'm going to say is just sort of my own personal perceptions, but I think it's on three levels. One, I mean, there's obviously the economic shock potential of, high gas prices, and that's at the individual expenditure level and the overall economy, and that could have a major thing. But I think there's some potential real upsides, and I think in the long run, I mean, we want to become less dependent on, fuel and gas, and the higher prices is going to be an incentive very quickly to more transit and investment in alternatives, right? So I think it could potentially be a stimulus to some of actually the industries that we are strong on in Sacramento. I mean, there's plug-in hybrid electric vehicle center at UC Davis, the smart grid center at Sacramento State. I mean, that's all about building a future for an electric vehicle-based system. And so if we have high prices, I mean, the short-term shocks could be pretty drastic. But I think in terms of providing support for a longer-term transformation, I actually think it could have some beneficial side effects.
I would agree. I think he stated
Bill
it very
Mueller
well.
endorses $5 gas. Write that
do.
down.
But I was going to say, I hope for gas, but
Leading
no,
your
I don't
economic
hope for
development.
that,
I do think that it will be a catalyst, but I think it'll be a catalyst both for good or bad, to be honest. I'm concerned in the social equity framework that that the burden of $5 gas falls disproportionately to those at the lowest end of the economic spectrum and actually push them away, not towards this effort, because of the choices that that we talked about earlier. But the upside is that you may get higher wage earners more interested in transit because they're really looking at, hey, it's, do I pay for the grocery bill here, or, can I park the car 3 days out of a week and take transit?
Right.
And so you could really start to see in suburban environments, the people in Roseville and El Dorado Hills and Elk Grove really thinking about transit as an option and putting pressure on those transit systems to work for them in a way that isn't happening.
Yeah.
So I think there's a lot of unintended or new audiences that could come to the table.